The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Maya pushed her squeaky shopping cart through the nearly empty grocery store. It was almost midnight, and most normal people were home sleeping. But Maya wasn't most people. She was a single mom doing whatever it took to survive. Her 6-month-old baby girl Lily was fast asleep in the cart, her tiny fist curled around a worn stuffed bunny. Maya had wrapped her in 2 blankets because the store's air conditioning was cranked up way too high. She looked so peaceful, completely unaware that her mom was having the worst day of her life. Maya stopped in front of the baby formula section and felt her heart sink. The prices seemed to have gone up again, $24 for the cheapest brand. She reached into her purse and pulled out a crumpled envelope where she kept her emergency money. Inside were mostly quarters, some dimes, and a few dollar bills. Money she had been saving from tips at the diner where she worked nights. She had already worked a double shift at the hotel that morning, cleaning rooms until her back ached. Then she rushed home to feed Lily and grab a quick shower before her evening shift at the restaurant. Some days she felt like she was running on nothing but coffee and determination. The thing about being a single mom is that you become really good at math. Not the kind they teach in school, but survival math. Maya knew exactly how much money she had down to the last penny. She knew which bills were due when. She knew how to make a box of mac and cheese stretch into 2 meals. She knew that generic diapers worked just as well as the expensive ones, even though they didn't have cute little cartoon characters on them. But tonight, her math wasn't adding up the way she needed it to. Maya counted her money 3 times, hoping somehow the numbers would magically change. $21.37. She was almost $3 short, and Lily was completely out of formula. There wasn't a single bottle left at home. She looked at her sleeping daughter and felt that familiar knot in her stomach. The same feeling she got every time she had to choose between paying the electric bill or buying groceries. The same feeling when Lily's daycare called asking about overdue payments. The same feeling that kept her awake at night, staring at the ceiling and wondering how she was going to make it through another month. Maya picked up the cheapest formula and read the label, even though she had memorized it by now. She had tried switching to an even cheaper brand last month, but it made Lily sick to her stomach. Some things you just can't compromise on, even when you're broke. She walked over to the diaper aisle and grabbed a small pack. More math in her head. If she bought the diapers, she definitely couldn't afford the formula. If she bought the formula, Lily would run out of diapers by tomorrow morning. She stood there for what felt like forever, holding both items and trying to figure out which one was more urgent. A few other late-night shoppers passed by her in the aisle. A college student buying energy drinks and instant noodles. An elderly man picking up prescription medications. They all seemed to know exactly what they needed and could afford it without counting quarters. Maya thought about calling her sister, but she had already borrowed money from her twice this month. She thought about her mom, who lived 3 states away and was dealing with her own financial problems. She thought about the father of her child, who had promised to help but disappeared the moment things got difficult. The truth was, she was completely on her own. She decided to go with the formula. Diapers could wait until tomorrow somehow. Maybe she could ask her neighbor if she had any extras. Maya hated asking for help, but sometimes you have to swallow your pride when you're responsible for another human being. As she walked toward the checkout, Maya noticed there were only 2 registers open. One had a long line of people buying alcohol and snacks. The other had just one customer, a man in a nice suit who looked completely out of place in this neighborhood grocery store at midnight. Maya got behind him and immediately started rehearsing what she would say to the cashier. She would explain that she needed to pay in quarters and ask them to be patient while she counted everything out. She had done this before at other stores, and some cashiers were understanding while others made her feel like she was causing trouble. Lily stirred in her sleep and made a little cooing sound that melted Maya's heart every single time. This baby was the reason she got up every morning, the reason she worked 2 jobs, the reason she hadn't given up when everything fell apart. Before Lily was born, Maya had dreams of going back to college and becoming a nurse. She had been saving money and planning to enroll in classes. But life has a way of changing your plans whether you're ready or not. Now her dreams looked different. Smaller, maybe, but just as important. Her dream was simply to give her daughter a better life than she had growing up. Maya remembered being Lily's age and hearing her own parents argue about money in the next room. She remembered wearing clothes from the thrift store and pretending they were new when kids at school made fun of them. She remembered the feeling of being different, of being less than everyone else because her family didn't have much money. She was determined that Lily would never feel that way, even if it meant Maya had to sacrifice everything else. The man in front of her was taking a long time at the register. Maya could see him chatting with the cashier about something, but she couldn't hear what they were talking about. She used the extra time to count her money one more time, just to be absolutely sure. Still $21.37. Maya looked down at her clothes and suddenly felt self-conscious. She was still wearing her work uniform from the diner, which had a small stain on it from when someone's kid threw spaghetti. Her shoes were worn out and comfortable because she spent 12 hours a day on her feet. She probably looked exactly like what she was, someone who was barely hanging on. But then she looked at Lily again, sleeping so peacefully, and remembered that none of that mattered. What mattered was that she was doing her best. What mattered was that she showed up every day and fought for her daughter's future. What mattered was love, and Lily had more love than any baby could ever need. The man in front of her finished his transaction and moved aside. Maya pushed her cart forward, took a deep breath, and prepared to count out $21.37 in quarters and small bills. She had no idea that her life was about to change forever. Maya wheeled her cart up to the checkout counter, her heart beating a little faster than usual. The teenage cashier looked tired and probably wanted to go home just as much as she did. His name tag said Kevin, and he had that look of someone who had been dealing with difficult customers all day. She placed the formula on the conveyor belt and gave him a nervous smile. "Hi, I need to pay for this with quarters and small bills if that's okay." Kevin sighed and nodded, though she could tell he wasn't thrilled about it. Behind her she heard the man in the expensive suit shift slightly, but she didn't turn around. She was too focused on getting through this transaction without making a scene. "That'll be $24.47, Kevin said, scanning the barcode. Maya's stomach dropped. She had been hoping against hope that maybe she had miscalculated the price. But there it was on the register display, glowing like a neon sign of her failure. $24.47. She was still $3.10 short. I think I miscounted," she said quietly, reaching into her purse again. Her hands were shaking slightly as she dumped out all her change onto the counter. Quarters rolled in different directions, and she had to chase one before it fell onto the floor. The man behind her stepped closer, and Maya could smell his cologne, something expensive that probably cost more than she made in a week. She felt even more embarrassed knowing that someone who clearly had money was watching her count out quarters like a little kid buying candy. Kevin started counting the coins, stacking the quarters in neat piles of 4. Maya knew he was trying to be patient, but she could see other customers getting in line behind the well-dressed man. A woman with a cart full of groceries checked her phone impatiently. An older man holding just a gallon of milk tapped his foot. $21.37, Kevin announced after counting twice. Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, I'm a little short. Can you maybe take off the tax?" She knew it was a stupid question before she even asked it, but desperation makes you say things that don't make sense. Kevin looked uncomfortable. "I can't do that, ma'am. Tax is tax." Behind her, Maya heard someone else getting in line. Now there were at least 4 people waiting, and she was holding everyone up because she couldn't afford a $24 container of baby formula. She wanted to disappear into the floor. "Maybe I can put some of it back?" she asked. Though she knew that didn't make sense either. You couldn't buy half a container of formula. Lily chose that moment to wake up and start fussing. Her little cries echoed through the quiet store, making Maya feel even more flustered. She picked up her daughter and tried to rock her gently while still dealing with the situation at the register. "It's okay, sweetie," she whispered to Lily, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to calm the baby or herself. The man behind her cleared his throat softly. Maya turned around, expecting him to be annoyed like everyone else probably was. Instead, she saw something she didn't expect. Kindness in his eyes. He was probably in his early 50s, with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. His suit was definitely expensive, and his watch probably cost more than Maya's rent, but there was something gentle about the way he was looking at her and Lily. "Excuse me," he said quietly, stepping forward. His voice was calm and respectful, not demanding or impatient like she had expected. Maya braced herself for a complaint about how long she was taking. Instead, he turned to Kevin and said something that completely shocked her. "Put her items on. My card, please." Maya stared at him. "What? No, I can't let you do that." The stranger smiled at her, and it was the kind of smile that made you feel like everything might actually be okay. "It's really no problem at all. But I don't even know." "You," Maya said, shifting Lily to her other arm. "I can't accept money from a stranger." Other customers in line were now paying attention to what was happening. Maya felt like she was in a spotlight, with everyone watching this weird interaction between her and this well-dressed man who wanted to buy her baby formula. "My name is David," he said, extending his hand for a handshake. "Now we're not strangers anymore." Despite everything, Maya found herself smiling a little. There was something about this man that made her feel safe. Not in a romantic way, but in the way a grandfather might make a child feel protected. "I'm Maya," she said, shaking his hand while still holding Lily. "And this is Lily." David looked at the baby and his whole face softened. "She's beautiful. How old is she?" 6 months, Maya said, feeling some of her tension ease. There was something about talking about Lily that always made her feel proud, even in embarrassing situations like this one. "I remember when my daughter was that age," David said. "She used to wake up at the worst possible moments, too." Maya felt a little relief knowing that this man was a father. It made his offer feel less strange somehow, but she still couldn't accept it. "Listen, David, I really appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't let you pay for this. I'll figure something else out." David studied her face for a moment, and Maya had the feeling he was trying to understand something about her. Not in a judgmental way, but like he was trying to see the real person behind the embarrassing situation. "Can I ask you something?" he said gently. "If you saw a mother in your exact situation right now, and you had the money to help, what would you do?" Maya thought about it. If she had money and saw another single mom struggling to buy formula for her baby, she would help in a heartbeat. She wouldn't even think twice about it. "I'd help her," she admitted. "Then let me help you," David said simply. "Sometimes we all need a little assistance. There's no shame in accepting kindness from another person." Kevin cleared his throat. "So, are we doing this or not? I've got other customers waiting." Maya looked at the line of people behind them, then at Lily, who was starting to get fussy again. She thought about her empty refrigerator at home and the fact that she wouldn't get paid again for 3 more days. "I'll pay you back," she said finally. "I don't know how or when, but I promise I'll pay you back." David shook his head. "The only payment I want is for you to help someone else when you're able to. Deal?" Before Maya could change her mind again, David handed his credit card to Kevin. Maya watched in amazement as this stranger paid not just for her formula, but when Kevin asked if he wanted to add anything else, David looked at Maya thoughtfully. "Actually, add some of those diapers too," he said. "The ones she was looking at earlier." Maya's eyes filled with tears. This man had been watching her struggle in the store and had seen her difficult choice between formula and diapers. He had seen her pain and decided to do something about it. As Kevin processed the payment, Maya tried to find the words to thank this unexpected angel who had just changed her entire week. The receipt printed out with a long mechanical whir, and Kevin handed it to David along with his credit card. Maya stood there holding Lily, still trying to process what had just happened. A complete stranger had just paid for her groceries without asking for anything in return. "Thank you," she whispered, but the words felt so small compared to what David had just done for her. "You're very welcome," David said, putting his wallet back in his jacket pocket. "We've all been there." Maya wasn't sure she believed that. Looking at David's expensive clothes and confident manner, It was hard to imagine him ever counting quarters in a grocery store, but there was something in his eyes that made her think maybe he understood more than she expected. Kevin bagged up, the formula and diapers, and Maya took the bags with shaking hands. Behind them, the other customers were finally moving forward, probably relieved that the drama was over. The woman with the full cart gave Maya a sympathetic smile as she approached the register. "Thank you again," Maya said to David as they walked away from the checkout counter. "I don't know what I would have done." "You would have figured something out," David said. "Parents always do. We're more resourceful than we give ourselves credit for." As they walked toward the exit, Maya felt overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't quite name. Relief, gratitude, embarrassment, and something else she couldn't identify. Maybe it was hope, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said as they reached the automatic doors. "Why did you help me? You don't know anything about me?" David paused and looked thoughtful. "When I was about your age, I was in a similar situation. Not exactly the same, but close enough. I was working 2 jobs, trying to support my family, and barely making ends meet." Maya found this hard to believe. "Really? Really? I remember standing in a grocery store checkout line, counting out change for a loaf of bread and some peanut butter. I was behind on rent. My car was making a weird noise I couldn't afford to fix, and I felt like I was failing at everything." David's voice got quieter as he continued. "An elderly woman behind me saw me struggling and quietly paid for my groceries. I tried to refuse just like you did, but she insisted. She told me that someday when I was doing better, I should help someone else the same way." "Did you?" Maya asked. David smiled. "This is probably the 20th time I've done this over the years, maybe more. I've lost count." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. 20 times? When you've been blessed with success, it feels good to share it. Plus, that elderly woman was right. Helping others actually helps you too. It reminds you of what's really important in life. They stepped outside into the cool night air. The parking lot was mostly empty except for a few cars scattered around. David's car was obviously the expensive sedan parked near the front, while Maya's beat-up Honda was somewhere in the back row where she always parked to avoid dings and scratches. "I have to ask," Maya said as they stood by the shopping cart return area. "What do you do for work? I mean, you're obviously doing well for yourself." David seemed to consider this question carefully. "I work in business, hotels mostly." Maya nodded, though she was curious about the vague answer. Most people were more specific about their jobs, especially successful people who seemed proud of what they did. "What about you?" David asked. "Besides being a full-time mom, which is the hardest job in the world." Maya appreciated that he called being a mom a job. A lot of people acted like staying home with kids was somehow easier than working outside the house, which was ridiculous. "I work at a hotel during the day housekeeping," Maya said, "and I waitress at a diner most evenings. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, usually." David nodded with understanding. "Those are both honest jobs. Hard work that matters." Maya liked that he didn't seem to judge her for the type of work she did. Some people looked down on housekeepers and waitresses as if those jobs were somehow less important than office work. But David spoke about her jobs with respect. Lily started getting fussy again, and Maya bounced her gently. "I should probably get her home. It's way past her bedtime." "Of course," David said. "Where are you parked?" Maya pointed toward the back of the parking lot. "Way back there. I always park in the cheap seats." David laughed, and it was a genuine, warm sound. "I know, that feeling. Old habits die hard." As they walked toward Maya's car, David carried one of the grocery bags for her. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. Maya couldn't remember the last time someone had helped her carry anything. "Can I give you some advice?" David said as they walked from one parent to another. "Sure. Don't be too hard on yourself. I know it feels overwhelming right now, but you're doing better than you think. Your daughter is lucky to have a mom who cares so much about taking care of her." Maya felt the tears coming back. "Some days I feel like I'm completely failing at everything. Every parent feels that way sometimes. I used to lie awake at night worrying that I wasn't providing enough for my family, that I was making all the wrong decisions, but you know what I learned? What? Love matters more than money. Your daughter won't remember that you paid for formula with quarters. She'll remember that you were always there for her, that you worked hard to take care of her, and that you loved her enough to sacrifice everything for her happiness. They reached Maya's car and she fumbled in her purse for her keys. The Honda was 12 years old and had seen better days, but it ran most of the time, which was all Maya could ask for. "Thank you for saying that," Maya said as she opened the back door to put Lily in her car seat. "I needed to hear it." David helped her load the groceries into the trunk while she got Lily settled. The baby had finally fallen back asleep, exhausted from her late-night adventure. "Before you go," David said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a business card and handed it to Maya. "If you ever need anything, a reference for a job, help with an emergency, anything at all, please call me." Maya looked at the card. In the dim parking lot light, it had David's name and phone number, but she couldn't quite make out the company name or his title. "I can't keep taking help from you," she said. "You've already done too much." "This isn't about charity," David said gently. "Sometimes in life we meet people who are meant to help each other. Maybe there's something you can do for me someday. You never know how these things work out." Maya tucked the card into her wallet next to her driver's license. "I promise I'll pay this kindness forward, just like you said." "I believe you will," David said, and Maya could tell he meant it. As Maya got into her car and started the engine, she watched David walk to his sedan. She still couldn't believe what had just happened. A few hours ago, she had been counting quarters and worrying about how she was going to feed her daughter. Now she had formula, diapers, and something even more valuable: the knowledge that there were still good people in the world who helped others without expecting anything in return. Maya drove home in a daze, glancing at Lily in the rearview mirror every few minutes. The baby was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that a stranger had just changed their lives in the most unexpected way. The formula and diapers sat in the passenger seat like precious cargo, and Maya kept touching the bags to make sure they were really there. Her small apartment was on the third floor of an old building that had seen better days. The stairs creaked under her feet as she carried Lily and the groceries up, being extra careful not to wake the baby. Her neighbors were mostly shift workers like herself, and everyone tried to be quiet during the late-night hours. Inside her tiny one-bedroom apartment, Maya put Lily in her crib and finally allowed herself to break down. She sat on her second-hand couch and cried, not from sadness this time, but from relief. For the first time in months, she didn't have to worry about how she was going to feed her daughter tomorrow. After a few minutes, she pulled herself together and put the formula in the kitchen cabinet. As she was organizing everything, she remembered the business card David had given her. She pulled it out of her wallet and walked over to the lamp to read it properly. The card was simple, but elegant, with thick paper that felt expensive between her fingers. In the dim light, she could finally make out what it said. David Chen, Chief Executive Officer, Premier Hotels International. Maya's hands started shaking. Premier Hotels International was the company she worked for. She cleaned rooms at the downtown location 5 days a week, scrubbing toilets and changing sheets for $8 an hour. She had seen that name on her paychecks hundreds of times, but she had never connected it to a real person. And the CEO, her boss's boss, had just bought her baby formula. Maya sank into her kitchen chair, staring at the card in disbelief. David Chen was one of the most powerful people in the city's hospitality industry. She had seen his picture in the company newsletter that someone occasionally left in the break room, but the photo was usually small and she had never paid much attention to it. Now that she thought about it, she could see the resemblance. The same kind eyes, the same gentle smile. But in the grocery store, he had just seemed like a nice man in an expensive suit. She never would have imagined he was the person who signed her paychecks. Maya thought about all the things she had told him. How she worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. How she was struggling to pay her bills. How she felt like she was failing at everything. She had basically told the CEO of her company that his wages weren't enough for her to survive on. Her first emotion was embarrassment. What if David thought she was complaining about the company or trying to get special treatment? What if he remembered her name and looked up her employee file? What if this somehow affected her job? But then Maya remembered the way David had looked at her in the store. There hadn't been any judgment in his eyes, only kindness. He had helped her not because he knew she worked for him, but because he saw a mother in need and wanted to help. Maya realized that David probably had no idea who she was. She was just one of hundreds of housekeeping staff across all the premier hotel locations. Her name badge at work just said Maya, without a last name, and she doubted the CEO spent much time looking at employee records for housekeepers. Still, the revelation changed everything she thought she knew about the evening. Maya pulled out her phone and Googled David Chen Premier Hotels. Dozens of articles came up about his business success, his philanthropy, and his leadership in the hospitality industry. There were photos of him at charity events, shaking hands with politicians and receiving business awards. One article from last year caught her attention. Local CEO donates $1 million to children's charities. The piece talked about David's commitment to helping families in need, and his belief that successful businesses should give back to their communities. Another article mentioned that David had grown up in a working-class family and had worked his way through college by washing dishes in restaurants. Maya found herself smiling as she read about his humble beginnings. No wonder he had understood her situation so well. He really had been there himself. Maya spent an hour reading about David Chen, and everything she learned made her respect him more. He seemed to be exactly what he had appeared to be in the grocery store, a successful person who remembered what it was like to struggle and wanted to help others. But Maya also felt a growing sense of worry. What if other employees found out that the CEO had helped her personally? What if people thought she was getting special treatment? The last thing she wanted was for her coworkers to think she was trying to get ahead by befriending the boss. At the same time, Maya couldn't help but feel hopeful. If David Chen was the kind of person who would help a struggling stranger in a grocery store, maybe he was also the kind of boss who cared about his employees' well-being. Maybe he didn't know that people like Maya were working for his company and still couldn't afford basic necessities. Maya looked at her sleeping daughter and made a decision. She would keep David's secret, just like he was keeping hers. She wouldn't tell anyone at work what had happened, and she would continue doing her job the same way she always had. The fact that the CEO had shown her kindness didn't mean she deserved special treatment, but Maya also decided that she would follow David's advice about helping others when she could. Even though she didn't have much money, there were other ways to make a difference in people's lives. The next morning, Maya got ready for work with a different attitude than usual. She put on her housekeeping uniform and packed her lunch. But instead of dreading another day of backbreaking work, she felt curious about the company she worked for. During her break, Maya took a closer look at the employee bulletin board in the break room. She had walked past it thousands of times but had never really paid attention to what was posted there. Today she saw announcements about employee recognition programs, safety training opportunities, and even some information about college scholarship programs for employees' children. Maya wondered if these programs had always been there or if they were new. She made a mental note to ask her supervisor about the scholarship program. Maybe someday Lily could benefit from it. At lunch, Maya sat with her usual group of co-workers in the hotel's employee cafeteria. They were talking about their weekend, plans, and complaining about difficult guests, the same conversations they had every day. But today, instead of just listening, Maya found herself really looking at her colleagues. There was Rosa, who was supporting 3 kids on her own after her husband was deported. There was James, who was working full-time while taking night classes to become an accountant. There was Patricia, who sent half her paycheck to her elderly parents in another state. Maya realized that she wasn't the only one struggling. Most of her co-workers were dealing with their own financial challenges, their own impossible choices between paying bills and buying groceries. For the first time, Maya wondered if David Chen knew about the real lives of his employees. She wondered if he understood that people who worked for his company were shopping with quarters and choosing between formula and diapers. Maya looked at David's business card one more time before tucking it back into her wallet. She still wasn't sure what to do with the knowledge of who he really was. But she knew that last night had changed something fundamental about how she saw her life and her future. 3 weeks had passed since that night in the grocery store, and Maya still thought about David Chen every single day. She had kept his secret, never mentioning to anyone at work that she had met the CEO. But the encounter had changed something, deep inside her. Like a small flame had been lit in her heart. Maya started noticing things at work that she had never paid attention to before. The way Rosa's shoulders sagged when she talked about her kids asking for things she couldn't afford. How James yawned constantly because he was staying up until 2 in the morning studying after his shift ended. The way Patricia always brought the same peanut butter sandwich for lunch day after day. One morning, Maya was cleaning rooms on the 15th floor when she overheard 2 managers talking in the hallway. They were discussing some kind of new employee program that was being rolled out across all premier hotel locations. The CEO wants it implemented by next month, one of them said. Something about emergency assistance funds and childcare support. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She wondered if David's grocery store encounter with her had inspired this new program. The timing seemed too perfect to be a coincidence. That afternoon, Maya's supervisor called a staff meeting in the employee break room. Everyone gathered around, curious about what was happening. Their supervisor, Mrs. Rodriguez, seemed excited as she explained the new Employee Family Support Program. Starting next week, the company is offering emergency loans of up to $500 for employees facing unexpected financial hardships, Mrs. Rodriguez announced. No interest, and you can pay it back slowly through payroll deduction. Maya watched her co-workers' faces light up. Rosa actually started crying a little, probably thinking about all the times $500 would have made the difference between keeping the lights on or sitting in the dark. There's also going to be subsidized child care available at 3 locations across the city, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, and the company is expanding the scholarship program for employees' children. After the meeting, Maya walked back to her cleaning cart feeling amazed. David hadn't just helped her that night. His kindness was now reaching hundreds of families. But Maya also felt inspired to do something herself. She didn't have money to give like David did, but she had other things to offer. The next day, Maya brought an extra sandwich to work. During her break, she found Rosa in the supply closet, crying quietly while she counted crumpled dollar bills. "Hey, are you okay?" Maya asked gently. Rosa wiped her eyes quickly. "My daughter needs new shoes for school and I don't get paid until Friday. I'm trying to see if I have enough for the cheapest pair at the thrift store." Maya handed Rosa the extra sandwich and sat down beside her. "I know we don't know each other super well, but I have $20 I can lend you. No big deal." Rosa looked surprised. "Maya, I can't take your money." "It's not taking, it's borrowing," Maya said, pulling a $20 bill from her wallet. "Pay me back when you can. We moms have to stick together." Rosa hugged Maya tightly, and Maya realized how good it felt to help someone else, even in a small way. Word spread quickly among the housekeeping staff that Maya was willing to help out when she could. Not with money, none of them had much of that, but with other things. Maya started bringing extra snacks to share. She offered to watch co-workers' kids when they needed to work overtime. She helped James study for his accounting exams during their lunch breaks. One day, Maya had an idea that excited her more than anything she had thought of in months. She approached Mrs. Rodriguez about starting an informal support group for single parents who worked at the hotel. "We could meet once a week during lunch," Maya explained. "Share resources, help each other out with childcare, maybe organize group activities for our kids. Nothing fancy, just people supporting each other." Mrs. Rodriguez loved the idea and even offered to let them use the conference room on the first floor. The first meeting of what Maya called the Single Parent Support Circle had 7 people. By the 4th week, there were 15. Parents shared tips on finding affordable childcare, helped each other with car repairs, and even organized potluck dinners where everyone could bring their kids. Maya found herself becoming a natural leader. In the group, people came to her with problems, and she was good at connecting them with solutions or with other people who could help. She discovered that she had a talent for bringing people together and making them feel less alone in their struggles. 6 months after the grocery store incident, Maya was mopping floors on the executive level when she saw a familiar figure walking down the hallway. David Chen was visiting the hotel, probably for some kind of business meeting. For a moment, Maya panicked. Should she say something? Pretend she didn't recognize him? She decided to keep working and see what happened. David was walking with 2 other executives discussing occupancy rates and revenue projections. As they passed Maya, David glanced her way, and their eyes met for just a second. Maya saw recognition flash across his face, followed by a warm smile. He didn't stop or say anything. He was clearly in the middle of important business. But he gave her a small nod that somehow conveyed everything she needed to know. Later that day, Maya found a note in her employee mailbox. It was handwritten on simple paper, not fancy letterhead. Maya, I heard about the wonderful work you're doing with the parent support group. Thank you for being a leader and helping your colleagues. Sometimes the best changes start with one person, caring enough to make a difference. Keep up the great work. Maya read the note 3 times before tucking it into her wallet next to David's business card. That evening, Maya was at home feeding Lily dinner when she got a phone call from Mrs. Rodriguez. Maya, I have some exciting news, her supervisor said. The company is creating a new position, Employee Family Liaison. It would involve coordinating support programs, organizing employee events, and serving as a bridge between staff and management. The pay is significantly better than housekeeping, and you'd have normal business hours. Maya's heart started racing. What does this have to do with me? The executives were impressed by your leadership with the parent support group. They want to offer you the position. Maya couldn't speak for a moment. A better job, better pay, and the chance to help other families like hers. It felt too good to be true. I'll need to think about it, Maya finally said, though she already knew her answer. A year later, Maya was sitting in her small but real office at Premier Hotels, planning a back-to-school event for employees' children. Lily, now walking and chattering constantly, was playing with blocks in the corner while Maya worked. On Maya's desk was a small jar filled with quarters, a reminder of where she had started and how far she had come. Next to it was a framed photo of Lily and a note from a coworker thanking Maya for helping her family through a difficult time. Maya still kept David's business card in her wallet, though she had never used it. She didn't need to. The kindness he had shown her in that grocery store had grown into something much bigger, a network of people helping each other, a company that cared about its employees' families, and a career that allowed Maya to make a difference every single day. Sometimes Maya wondered if David knew how much that night had changed, not just her life, but the lives of dozens of other families. She suspected he did, and that he was probably smiling about it somewhere, planning his next act of unexpected kindness for another stranger who needed it most.